Hello there and welcome to Tom's Warhammer Minis. Today I'm kickstarting off the second wave of my tutorials focusing on the fantastic Grand Cathay range of miniatures, and I'm back with another Sentinel, this time the classic Terracotta colour scheme. Now the YouTubers who were graced by Warhammer Official to get the models early have already done this tutorial, so the real question is what makes mine different? Now I love this model. Its origin is of course the video game, and video game artists are very different from miniature painters. Those models have animation, they're moving, they are placed in different landscapes with different lighting, and our plastic models are static. The colour and lighting is down to us to create, and the wrong colours can make our centerpieces look rather bland. Now Games Workshop went with yellow gemstones, and I'm sure that's contractual decision making with the company behind the Total War Warhammer game. And the YouTubers, as well as the many hobbyists, have copied that colour scheme. Now when painting miniatures, getting the right colours makes a huge impact, whether it's tabletop gaming, displaying your models in cabinets, or doing competitions. Now unfortunately the gemstone colour choices struggle to stand out in this case. It's that difference between looking good and looking great. Now this tutorial will explain in detail my decision making using colour theory. Now while it's subtle, I'll also be showcasing you how to have 4 distinctive browns that are different shades. They're very subtle, they do blend together, but the difference is they enhance each other and they draw your eyes to all the different details of the model. It's much more better than just a single coat of brown. The importance of this tutorial though is to get you thinking about how you can approach painting the Terracotta Sentinel as well as models in general. As usual, it's done in my classic contrast painting style. So without further ado, grab your paints, grab your brushes, and let's get hobbying. Okie dokie, let's get started with our Terracotta Sentinel. I've been looking forward to showcasing this one. So to begin with, just to note, the model has been fully primed in white scar. And we're going to start with a very simple colour. You'll have seen other YouTubers do this, and it is Gore Grunter Fur. Terracotta has that very earthy looking colour, and this is both perfect, it's bright, it's vivid, it's wooden, and it's earthy at the same time. So get your Citadel Skull palette, something big, because imagine a great big circle that's split into 8 parts, and we're going to turn that into 6 parts Gore Grunter Fur to 2 parts Llama Medium, and that's really essentially going to keep the colour as it originally is, but it's going to help with the flow, and that's what the Llama Medium does, and it's also going to slightly protect it, especially when we come to dry brushing it later, so it'll prevent chipping. And quite simply, start at the top, work your way down, just paint an even layer over every surface. But unlike other models, you don't have to, in my opinion, worry too much about pooling. Obviously excessive pooling, move it around, shift the paint, but certain areas where it gets a bit dark and it gets a bit lighter, don't worry, because we're imagining this is terracotta. Terracotta is rather messy, it's not an even colour all over. So we're going to use this to our advantage and just create a very natural feeling look. Now once that's completely dry, once again I've taken Gore Grunter Fur, no thinning down this time. I really want to make the model pop rather than just one overall colour. If you see my other Sentinels, I have different areas that I focus on. We're going to do the same here. We've got the chainmail plating, we've got the patterned area, we've got the flat armour panels, and then we've got the blade. So I'm going to do 4 different tones of brown to really make this model pop. So taking that Gore Grunter Fur on its own again, I've applied this on its own, once it's dry, into those armour plates. Gives it that real dark look. Still very similar, but you've already started to notice the different textures of this model. Once that's done, let's let it dry. When painting contrast paints, they can sometimes come across rather flat looking in the finished result. One of the things you like to do, especially for me, is to enhance them. And you can either apply another contrast paint over the top, or as I like to prefer, shade paints. Now shade paints really add to the pigmentation and really enhance the natural colour. Sometimes tinting, but often just enhancing and enriching that colour. And the colour I'm going to use to begin with is Seraphim Sepia. I've applied this in 2 separate places. It's going to be very subtle. You're not really going to notice it. It's the overall finish is what's going to count here. So I've applied it on the paisley-like patterning that you can see dotted around the model. I've also applied it onto the armor plating that we darkened down. Again, you're not really going to notice it. It's really going to settle into the recesses there and just help to darken them a little bit further. One important note though, when applying it on here, because it's a shade paint, it is going to be very runny. It's going to pull straight to the bottom. So just keep an eye on that. Get your brush, take a bit off, dab it onto a bit of kitchen towel. Keep going until you've got a nice flat even there and let it completely dry. It will be subtle. It's just all about enriching that colour. And we're continuing with our armour tinting enhancing colours. The paint I'm using next is Targor Raid Shade. Again, I've put it in that Skull Citadel palette. I've thinned it down with Lamy Medium. We're talking roughly 5 parts Targor Raid Shade, 1 part Lamy Medium to help with the flow. And essentially where I've applied it, we're not doing the blade. We're not doing those patterned areas on the body. But the rest of the model, I've applied it on. We don't want it to pull, so keep an eye because it will be runny, especially going downwards. But yeah. Over all the flat armor panels, over the armor plating to darken it further, and just take your time, check for pooling, and it will leave a nice darker tint. And the last colour for our tinting is going to be Darko Flesh, and I thin this down ever so slightly into the palette, 4 parts Darko Flesh to 1 part Lamy Medium, and essentially the last place that we haven't applied it yet is the entire blade, not the patterning, not the hands, just the rest of the blade. So from all the tips here, the main handle and the other side. Apply it all over, check for pooling, and then we can move on to the next stage. It's time to apply our first highlight, and naturally with such a big model like this, and all of the edges, we're going to do some dry brushing. We need to think about the colours that we use. Terracotta has that very earthy texture colour, so the colour I'm using is going to be skin tone colours. And the first one is Kislev Flesh. Quite simply, it's a heavy dry brush all over. Not too heavy where it's going to start chalking and buff the other surfaces, but enough that it catches every surface all the way around. It's going to take quite a while. Just take your time, keep uploading the brush with new paint, and yeah, just dry brush every surface. We're going to continue with our flesh tone dry brushing to give that real earthen terracotta look. And the colour I'm using next is Flayed One Flesh. Now, like before, I'm applying it all over, but more as a downward kind of dry brushing, focusing on the areas that light hits the most. There's a lot more gentler rather than the harder dry brushing I did in the previous step. Just give you a look all around. Just take your time. Be a lot quicker than the first dry brushing, but it's still going to take a bit of time. Finally, I'm applying one more dry brush, and the colour I'm using here is Pallid Witch Flesh, again keeping to that flesh tone colour route. It's really just going to pop out the last few remaining details, and I've applied this very sparingly, so where light hits the most, so like the top, not the sides though, the top of the blade, not the under blade, top of the knuckles, not under, all these little triangular armour plating pieces, again tops, just really limit what you're doing here. It's where light hits the most. And with that, the brown of our terracotta is completely done. Now it's quite subtle, the 4 different tones that I've used here, but it really all blends into one. It doesn't mean it's just one overall thing that's rather sort of boring and bland to look at. There are lots of areas of interest, and it really picks out all the details of this magnificent model. Next up, I'm going to work on the base. The reason I'm going to do that is going to save a lot of time later when we finish the model. With the dry brushing all done, as I say, we can focus on the base. It's just going to save us a lot of time in the long run. And it's also been quite a requested thing within my local Warhammer community on how I do it. So the texture paint I have used is one of the Citadel ones. It's a Grellan Badland. I often find this paint a bit of an odd one. It's quite thick. It's quite hard to move about. Yeah, you can get a texture tool. You can slap it on. But moving about, it just feels rather rough. So what I've done is, before applying it, I've prepped the surface. And what I've used is Ard Coat, a gloss varnish. Simply, it just smooths the base down. So when I'm applying the Grellan Badland, it just slides over. It makes life a lot easier, a lot less painful. And that's the whole point, making the hobby happy. So applied it all on. For the stone pathway, if you were interested in doing something like that, it's just chop sprue. At the very beginning, once the model's built, chop a sprue up. chop it into little sections. It doesn't have to be neat because you want it to be rough, you want it to look different, and just glue it down with plastic glue. And there you go, that's what you do. So that done, just let it dry. In this current heat, it's not going to take long. I only applied a thin layer again, so it's not going to take too long. And then we can shade it. Next up, it's time to focus on the living rock, and the colour I've used here is Iyanden Yellow. I'm just going to briefly talk about the reasons why. Now for me, this is how I've painted my other two, which you can absolutely check out on YouTube. I've done a willow pattern one, I've done a warpstone one, and for both of those living rocks I have used Iyanden Yellow. So for keeping that thematic part of the army, it makes sense. It's like I'm going to do in the bases, you're knowing that they're all part of the same army, in the same area. It just looks visually better when they're on the tabletop. However, it was a bit of a debate. The yellow and the brown, they're very similar in tones. You can notice it. It absolutely stands out. But they do have a habit of blending in. And that's where we as people, when watching and looking at these models, we start to lose interest in the details. Now, one of the reasons that I'm going to change this model is when you look at the Terracotta one, and this comes from the video game Origins, and obviously Games Workshop have had to copy the same, and many of the YouTubers have copied what they've done, and they've painted the gemstones yellow, and again, it won't stand out. So one of my thoughts is, do I paint the living rock a light blue? Now that's what I'm going to do for the gems. They're going to be very shiny, very bright in the next few stages, and it's going to really contrast against this dark terracotta brown. Something to consider when painting your living rock. Yes, I've used the Iyanden Yellow. I've got reasons why. If it wasn't to match the rest of my army, I would have gone down a light blue route. Just something to consider. Next up, I'm focusing on the base, and I'm using two colours here to begin with. We're starting with the brickwork, and the colour I like to use on my models here is Black Legion. It's dark, it's strong, there's no real nicety to this, I just slap it on. Let it dry fully though, because what I'm going to then do is take Targor Raid Shade, and you can see I've already done it, and I've applied it over both the soil and the brickwork. And there's two reasons to this. For the soil, I want a light brown texture. I don't want the darkness of Sterling Mud, that's why I went with a Grand Badland, but it turns it into this nice lighter coloured soil with plenty of shading. It's going to be noticeable once I put the grass on. For the blackwork, you're not going to really notice it, but what it's going to do, it's going to act like a mini varnish. Shade paints do have that quality, so when I dry brush it later, the chances of it chipping back to white scar, it shouldn't happen. And that's the reasons why. So apply those on, and then we can move to the next stage. Next up, we're focusing on all that parchment paper, as well as the ropes that are holding them. Now, I'm going to reiterate here how highly important it is to contrast our colours. And I'm going to be working into a triadic colour scheme. Now, if you've looked at my Warpstone Sentinel or my Willow Pattern Sentinel, you'll know that parchment paper that I've done there, I've done in Skeleton Horde. It's a sort of go-to when we think of miniatures within the Warhammer settings. However, if I do Skeleton Horde, you're not going to notice it. It's going to blend in, not horribly, it's just not going to stand out because of the terracotta colour being brown as well. So the colour I am opting for here is Flesh Tearers Red. And like I said, it's going to create that triadic colour scheme. The Iyanden Yellow, that one, and then the blue gemstones is really going to start popping those details. Simply paint it all over, no thinning down. Once that's dry, I've taken Black Legion once more, and I've applied it on the ropes. Again, let it dry completely. And then we're going to highlight them, again through dry brushing. And this is where we can be a bit cheeky. We can use a certain paint that's going to match with the theme of the terracotta. That's also going to match with the base. And we can do it all in one go. And the perfect colour that I always recommend is Carrick Stone. It is just such a great highlight. It really works wonders on most things. Simply dry brush it on, over the red, over the black, over the base. And I've done the base rocks as well. You're not really going to notice it too much on the base. That's not going to be an issue. If there are bits that you notice with that highlight, it's going to be good. It's going to get covered in grass anyway. So if there's anything popping through, it will stand out. It will show that it's been worked on. So do all those details, and then we can move on to the gemstones and the metals. Next up, it's time to base coat our metallic details. Now I've got two silvers here. I don't want to use gold. Gold's too similar to the brown. Again, we're talking about that contrasting colour concept. It's not going to stand out. So for the metallics that we see around the ropes, and there's not many, so there's a couple of trinkets here, a little couple of chains just on that bit. And the colour I've used, nice and bright, iron hand steel. Once that's done, we're going to move on to the gems. Now you've got all the gems around the belt. For the side armour plates, there's 6 in total on both sides. You've got the middle gem. If you've gone for this helmet, you've got one there. You've got one on the top. You've got the 2 eyes. You've got the 2 eyes in there. And you've got the little gems just around on each of the shoulder pads. And then you've got on each side, one here, 1, 2 here, 1, 2 there. So there's one under there as well. And the colour I've used is Stormhost Silver. It's going to be nice and bright. It's going to help create that metallic gem effect that we want. Next up, it is the gemstones, and I'm sure you'll agree with me, or at least I hope you do. They really stand out absolutely beautifully, really contrasting against the overall grungy, grimy nature of terracotta. The terracotta looks beautiful, but if they were yellow, they just don't stand out, I'm afraid. So the blue, rather nice and simply, start with Frost Heart. Just paint it straight over that Stormhost Silver. And the best way to do it is paint each one at a time and then let them dry. Once it's dry, you're going to find they're pretty flat looking. So we want to enhance the details because they've got this nice little recess shading with all those edge highlights. So the colour I use here is Tyrant Blue Shade. This is a very interesting blue. If you've seen me on Instagram, I've talked quite a lot about how wonderful this paint is. It is an enhancer rather than a shader. It's going to really tint that Frost Heart, make it pop a lot more, and it is going to settle into the recesses of those gems, creating that real perfect look. Again, put it all over, let it dry. It's still going to look a little bit flat because we have painted it over the silver. We need that shininess. So the last part to do is Ard Coat, that gloss varnish. Any gloss varnish will do. Just apply a thin layer over each gemstone, and as you can see, they are shining beautifully. There has been a lot of interest expressed in my Zen Garden basing that I've done for the models of the Cathayan range. Now for the Sentinels, because they've got such a big open space, it really is worth time just to put detail into that base rather than just slapping soil and grass on. It does look boring in my opinion. So the Buddhas I've used you can buy on Amazon. They're generic ones, they're in that polished redwood colour. And what I've done, simply take them out of the box, and using Chaos Black, the spray primer, I sprayed in black. Now because of the polished nature of these little statues, they won't really take to paint well. They will be able to be primed, it just takes a long time to dry. So spray in black, you'll take a few sprays of it, and then once that's done, you could hand paint them gold. What I've done is I've taken the Retributor armor spray that's also available from Citadel, and I've sprayed them that. Now that's going to take quite a bit of coating. It is one of those, it's not quite a primer, it is a spray paint. Just spray it on, it's going to take a long time to dry, but you will get this. And I'm going to paint those up a little bit next. To paint our gold Buddhas, I'm keeping it really simple because the main focus has to be the Sentinel itself. So to begin with, we've done a shade. The colour I've used is Gorgrunter Fur, and I have thinned this down quite a bit. So 4 parts Lamy Medium to roughly 1 part Gorgrunter Fur, and there's no real method, just slap it on. Let it fully dry, it will take a while, especially in those recesses. And in the next part, I've taken the rather old dry brush, and I'm using Liberator Gold. Now rather than just dry brushing in a traditional method, it's the best way to explain it. I've cleared most of the paint off the dry brush, but it's still a bit damp, and I've gone around in circular motions, just buffing all the surfaces, leaving all of that colour of the Gorgrunter Fur as recessed detail. It's a bit rough, it's a bit there, you're not really going to notice it because, again, the focus is the Sentinel, as well as there's going to be a lot of other basing material that I'm going to put on. So it's kept nice and simple. Now to apply these to the base, as you know, I've put the texture already on. You can use super glue. I'm going to use a little dot of super glue, but I'm also going to use epoxy resin. So I'm just going to put that on the base there, just stick it down and really let it set. Hopefully that way it'll never come off. It certainly worked on the other 2 Sentinels that I've done. And there we have it. With grass, Buddhas and classic Tom's Warhammer mini flower basing applied, my Terracotta Sentinel is complete. And those subtle brown differing tones really blend together perfectly, while the blue gems just make the whole terracotta scheme more noticeable. I've painted 3 of these now. You could check out those tutorials on my channel too. It's just a glorious model though, and this tutorial should provide some insights into not only how my mind works approaching miniature painting, but how we can take an awesome colour scheme like this and take it from good to great. And if that's how you feel, then please give this video that all important thumbs up like. Support my channel by sharing and subscribing, because helping me helps me to help you, the awesome Warhammer community, by providing more meaningful content. So until the next time, look after yourselves and happy hobbying.